Thank you, Lascan Corlan, Minister. I'm really pleased to have this opportunity. Okay, thank you, Lascan. I formally move the motion. Thank you. Look, I'm really pleased to have this opportunity to put forward this motion, which outlines the need for significant reform of carers' supports, in particular the Carers Allowance scheme. The Irish Health Survey of 2019, undertaken by the CSO, found that 1 in 8 people over the age of 15 provide care, and that tells us that approximately 500,000 or 500,000 people are family carers in Ireland. We also know from the 2018 Health Behaviour in Schools survey that approximately 67,000 young people in the 10 to 17 age group provide regular unpaid care. These huge numbers tell us something very important about family carers. They tell us society as we have constructed it could not function without the dedication, the love and the commitment of family carers, and it's in that context I bring forward this motion. Some carers care for a few hours each day, others care 24/7. Now, it's amazing how easily the phrase 24/7 trips off the tongue, but unless one is living with the reality of care, 24 hours of every day, 7 days of every week, and every week of every year, unless one is doing that, I think we can't even begin to imagine the dedication, the time management, the juggling of work and care, the fact that caring takes precedence over everything. It's first, last, and everything in between. Now, the figures in my motion tell us that there are 92,906 recipients of carers allowance, and that includes 42,823 recipients of half-rate carers allowance, and they provide care for 103,978 people. 57% of family carers juggle work and care, and all in all, family carers provide in the region of 1 billion hours of unpaid care each year. If the state had to provide that care, it would cost the taxpayers €20 billion every single year at the rate of €20 per hour. Now, I did a quick back-of-the-envelope calculation to look at a few counties to see what's the contribution of family carers in those counties. In Leitrim, family carers save the state approximately 120 million per year. In Sligo, family carers save the state 260 million per year. In Roscommon, family carers save the state about 250 million per year. And in Donegal, family carers save the state about 600 million per year. And I did a quick check on your own county, Minister of Monaghan, and family carers save the state approximately 240 million per year. Now, in order to qualify for carers allowance, there are many conditions to satisfy. First of all, you have to be over 18, and that, of course, cuts out young carers, an issue I'll come back to later. But you also must be habitually resident in the state and not work or be in education or training outside the home for more than 18.5 hours per week. You must provide full-time care, that is a minimum of 35 hours of care each week, to a person who is in need of full-time care and attention for a period of at least 12 months. In reality, that means carers care every day. Everything from providing intimate and personal care to ensuring the safety of the person they care for, from managing medication, hospital, doctors, other appointments, to advocating for the person they care for, from providing social interaction to cooking the dinner, from managing time off from maybe work, study or just a break, to living with sleepless nights and long, long days. And then, Minister, carers have to satisfy a means test. I have over the years heard this described as the mean test. And it is not just about money. It's also about the fact that carers are means tested on household income, not their own. And many carers have to rely on a partner for income support. This is a fundamental and core issue for many carers and must be part of any reform of carers' allowance. The Taoiseach has told us that there will be a referendum on gender equality in November of this year, which will propose the replacement of Article 41(2) with wording that recognises the immense contribution and public good given by Ireland's family carers. This upcoming referendum will provide a very opportune occasion to value the work of family carers and to reform carers' allowance so that we move towards an individualised approach to the means testing of carers' payments. Both the Citizens' Assembly and the Oireachtas Committee on Gender Equality recommend this reform. The Citizens' Assembly recommend a move towards an individualised social protection system, while the Oireachtas Joint Committee recommends assessing applicants for carers' allowance on their individual means rather than those of their partner or household income. The model for paying carers' allowance was put in place 33 years ago. It's gender biased because it started when the vast majority of carers, nearly 100%, were women. It's still 77%, but it is changing. But carers' allowance was based on the model of the woman at home doing the invisible and never-ending work of caring, while the breadwinner, the man of the house, provided the income. And if that income was above a certain very modest threshold, the woman had to rely on the breadwinner to give her money to allow her to care, because she wouldn't be entitled to carers' allowance. And I can guarantee you, Minister, that in the vast majority of cases, 100% of that money was spent on the increased cost of caring. I've outlined it in my motion what that is. It varies between €175 and about €244 extra every single week. But what this model did and still does was to devalue care, to make it invisible, to make it women's work, to regulate it and relegate it way below real work in the real world. No economist ever calculated the monetary value of care and included it in our GDP figures. It took carers' organisations to do this, and thankfully, I believe, that has shifted the dial. For some carers who could not access carers' allowance because of a partner's income, financial abuse was and still is a reality. In other households where income was shared, there was still sometimes a perception that this money was earned by the male head of the household and the carer had no financial resources in their own right. Now, Minister, I look forward to hearing your views on the proposal, both from the Citizens' Assembly and from the Committee on Gender Equality, because I believe we need to ensure an individualised approach to means testing of carers' payments. And I hope in your term of office you will be the Minister to make that fundamental and crucial change. Minister, I now want to focus on the income disregard for assessing carers' allowance, and that's the amount of money a household or individual can earn and still receive the full carers' allowance. In my motion, I have detailed the timeline which shows the increase in the income disregard. I won't repeat it here this morning. Safe to say that between 2000 and 2008, the income disregard for carers' allowance kept pace with the average weekly household earnings as calculated by the CSO, which, while not generous, was a good place to start. But for 14 years, I just sort of diverge for a minute. Everybody talks about the crash and the banks and the impact. Very few people talk about the impact on carers. Because between 2008 and 2022, there was zero increase in the income disregard for carers allowance. And fair dues, Minister, in 2022, you were the first minister in 14 years to increase that income disregard so that it now stands at €350 per week for a single carer and €750 per week for the total household income. Now, Minister, this really was a positive change, but we still see that the average weekly household earnings have far outpaced the income disregard for carers allowance. Last year, they stood at €900 for a household. And that's why I'm asking you, in this budget, in Budget 2024, that the income disregard for carers allowance be increased to €900 per week for households and €450 per week for single carers, or whatever is the equivalent of the average weekly earnings for 2023. Minister, if you can do that, it will bring family carers back to the level they were at in 2008. Now, that might not seem like a big ask, but in reality, many more thousands of family carers would qualify for carers allowance, and many on the reduced rate of carers allowance would receive the full rate. And if alongside that, you can pursue an individualised approach to means testing of carer payments, that would signal a profound and a positive change for family carers. Minister, I just want to ask you about what I think might be a possible anomaly, where currently the income disregard for single carers is €350 per week, but that's actually less than half the household income disregard of €750. If it was to be half of it, it would be €375. Now, the costs of caring, again, as I have shown in my motion and we're all aware, apply to every household equally, single or otherwise. So I'm not sure what the rationale is for having the income disregard for a single carer at less than half the income disregard for a family carer. I would see it, and please correct me if you think I'm wrong, as a discriminatory treatment of single carers. Minister, one of the issues I already mentioned and want to emphasise briefly is the need to look at the circumstances of young carers. There are an estimated 67,000 young people in the 10 to 17 age group that provide regular unpaid care. In fact, just 2 weeks ago, we had an excellent presentation in the AV room from young carers. And the reality, the day-to-day of their lives, for many of them, not all of them, but for many of them, is heartrending. Young teenagers, children, trying to care for parents or siblings because of illness, because of addiction, because of adverse circumstances, because of life. The lives they lead are lives of caring. And while we accept that adults care, that they can take that kind of responsibility, we do not want to see young carers taking on that responsibility. It's unfair, and it's deeply unfair. But living and life sometimes means that young carers have caring roles. And I'm asking something very specific, that we adequately support young carers to have a life and opportunities outside of their caring roles. And I look forward to your thoughts on how we can ensure that this happens. Minister, I want to finish by saying family carers are not angels. They're ordinary people who do their very, very best, out of love, out of common humanity, to care for those who need care. Often carers thrust upon people. They have little choice, but equally, caring often brings out the best in people and allows ordinary people to act like angels. The role of the state is largely to support and provide the safety net so that family carers can care. The motion I put forward with all of my colleagues in the independent group is, I believe, a balanced set of proposals on carers allowance, something that could reasonably be achieved in the lifetime of this government, if it runs full term. We believe our proposals are realistic and doable in the 18 to 24 months possible time frame of the lifetime of government. If this can be achieved, Minister, I believe it will provide a solid platform and a new paradigm for care and how we value care and how we value carers.